Hello and welcome, my name is William, and in my younger years I've been practicing Airsoft before later in life starting shooting and entering the competition circuit. And to be honest, the transition was not smooth at all. So I wanted to share with you the main differences between Airsoft and real firearms when it comes to a shooter's experience and cover what skills do you need to work on if you want to transition. Some people learn quicker than others, but for me, I would say it took me 1 year of mostly weekly practice, 2,500 rounds, for me to be at a level where I felt satisfied with my performance with real firearms, which means I can do the basics. It was a point where I felt confident enough, I'm going to try competitions, but then you start competitions and you realize you know nothing. Let's get started with appearance and weight. When it comes to appearance, usually replicas are very realistic, meaning that most of the controls you find are functional. To have an idea, this AR-15, which was based on the M4A1 RIS by Marui, I've changed all the parts into either stainless steel or aluminium, and it is still, I would say, 2 kgs lighter than what I use at the range. If I want to aim at something, I can just even do it with one hand. It's not going to cause me any problems. I can do this for hours. Here in these metal magazines, which are heavier than real life magazines, you still put only plastic BBs as opposed to cartridges with powder and with lead in the bullet. What happens is when you load a real firearm with cartridges, the magazines become really heavy. The added weight means that when after 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I feel the struggle with my arm, my shoulder, my back. It becomes a proper workout. Safety now. One big difference when it comes to especially electric rifles is that you cannot open the bolt and check the chamber to prove clear. So here what I find is the hop-up system, system that helps the BB to go further. I don't have any visibility on the chamber, so I don't know if there's a round in it or not. The only exception might be with gas blowback rifles and pistols, because here, if I want to prove clear, so the slide locks automatically if there's no rounds, if there's no magazine in it, and I have complete visibility on the chamber, so I know if there's a BB stuck in it or not. And that can be a problem because some rifles may have a BB stuck in the chamber after you remove the magazine. But the good thing with Airsoft is that you can aim at whether there's no one or at the ground and just fire to empty your chamber. When it comes to aiming, of course, one very good thing with Airsoft rifles and pistols is that they're usually compatible with real-life scopes, red dots, lasers, and more. But if you want to take the cheap option and use a scope which is designed for Airsoft, you will find that the eye relief is much less than for an actual rifle scope, which means that with an airsoft scope you'll have to bring your eye much closer to the scope, which is fine because there is no recoil, but you cannot use this scope and transfer it on a real life firearm because when you shoot, your scope's gonna hit you in the eye. When it comes to the shooting experience, for all of them, I think that's obvious. The main difference is that they're rather silent compared to the loud bang a firearm produces. And except for some gas blowback models, there is virtually no recoil. And that's a major downside when it comes to transferable skills, because when you start handling real firearms, the first thing you notice is the recoil. And why it matters, it's because you can't follow through if you don't have strong recoil control. You cannot see where your rounds are landing. And more annoying, you lose your sight picture. With airsoft gas blowback pistols, the recoil is even much less than with a 22 long rifle cartridge. With a real firearm, you have to pay very close attention to your stance, your grip, and your trigger discipline if you want to keep your target in sight. Otherwise, it's gonna jump, just like in video games. When it comes to bolt-action rifles, the main difference you will notice is while in real firearms, the bolt has very little resistance, it's very, very smooth. Here, because it is spring-actioned, I mean, you have some bolt-action rifles with gas, well, again, the spring strength is minimal. Here you have to really pull, and pull, depending on the strength of the spring you have in it. When it comes to electric rifles, the main factor of annoyance, I would say, is the short delay you find between the moment you press the trigger and the moment the rifle actually fires. Why? Because of the gearbox. Inside this rifle there is a set of gears that have to spin. It's powered by a battery, and even now you have very powerful batteries and motors. There's still a delay. While with a real firearm, once you go beyond the trigger wall, it fires instantly. Now when it comes to shooting performance, well, Airsoft really sucks. So if we look at this bolt-action rifle, which is based on a VSR-10 but highly customized, especially when it comes to the internals, so everything is super airtight. Do you know what's the accuracy of this rifle? 16 MOA, and that's on a good day. Nowadays, if you talk about an average rifle, like center fire rifle, and the only error is the error due to the ammunition in the rifle itself, they're getting between 2 and 2.5 MOA. And even if you shoot standing with a real center fire firearm with a sling, your error is going to be between 6 and 10 MOA, depending on how good of a shooter you are. At the same time, while a centerfire firearm's accuracy doesn't really change with the distance, here with Airsoft, because of all the elements involved, it's air, which is basically compressed in the first place, or gas, and you have the hop-up system to add more to it, you could find yourself with a very, very accurate rifle at short distances, but the further your target, the less accurate your rifle is going to be. So this rifle in this configuration is 500 FPS. It can reach up to 80 meters away, but realistically, beyond 50 meters, you can barely shoot consistently and hit someone, another player. If I were to make this rifle even more powerful, so if I put the most powerful spring you can find, it goes up to 120 meters, which is fun because I can take it to the range and use the 100 yards range and hit the target. But then it becomes really shooting at random because you're never guaranteed you're going to hit the target. Yes, it reaches far, but in terms of accuracy, it's not consistent at all. Even at 2 miles per hour wind makes the BB drift away to where I can see it. The wind always wins. Is there any transferable skills if you've been doing airsoft for a very, very long time when it comes to real firearms? You've probably seen a few videos, and yes, when it comes to the operation of the firearm, to some extent, these are transferable skills because the way you load the magazine, the way you aim, you hold the rifle are very, very similar. But when it comes to the experience of shooting, you need to pay attention to your points of contact with the rifle, that you hold everything the tightest way possible and in the right fashion, because the slightest error is going to affect your impact point. And if you're not able to manage the recoil correctly, you will lose your sight picture, and if you're, for example, doing competitions, this is not going to be helpful at all. But one good thing when it comes to airsoft rifles, especially for someone like me who lives in the UK and who does not own any firearms, I have to hire them from my club, because airsoft rifles, the way they're designed, they are completely compatible with real firearms parts such as rails, grips, stocks. So I can test at different settings with my airsoft rifles, and I can basically train dry firing. Even if the trigger experience is not the same, having access to the same firearms I find at my local range allows me to, again, train my fundamentals of marksmanship. How do I hold my rifle I do competitions where I have to shoot standing, sitting, kneeling, and prone. And for this, you need to build muscle memory. So how can you build muscle memory if you don't have access to real firearms? And this is where airsoft rifles are useful. Because the way I have to grip this one is exactly the same the way I have to grip my rifle for competitions. So there is exactly the same bust stock. I'm using the collapsible one. I have my foregrip. I have all my rail and sling attachments here. So what I do at home is sometimes I just shoulder my rifle and just practice aiming, attach my scope onto it, and I just practice until I get this muscle memory. And once at the range, of course, it's a bit different. The rifles are a bit heavier, but still in my hands, it feels familiar. And this is something you really want to get when you're shooting competitions. You want to really get familiar with your rifle. You don't want to think twice before aiming and shooting. You want this to happen naturally and automatically as soon as you grip the rifle. So yeah, do you get transferable skills? Yes, to some extent, but you'll still have a big and steep learning curves when it comes to switching to real firearms, especially if you venture into something like competition. I hope this video was useful. Thank you very much for watching. As always, stay safe.